Thank you for coming.
So today you had a Twitter thread in response to Ted Lieu's comments on health insurance and the CBO report that
Yes.
came out about why pre-existing conditions should be charged more. For those with pre-existing conditions that become priced out of the market due to them being charged more, which I understand your reasoning behind, car insurance, stuff like that. I read the thread.
Well, I mean, to reiterate my point for people who don't understand, just so if you're coming in late to this conversation, Ted Lieu tweeted something out about how it's ridiculous, basically, for insurance companies to charge people with pre-existing conditions more. To which I said, it's an insurance company. Of course it does. I mean, every insurance company in history charges people more based on their risk profile. That's why you have risk assessors at insurance companies. So go ahead.
Yeah, and my question is, for the people who are priced out of the market
Yes.
due to that, is their only solution to go without health care? And why do you think that's an acceptable solution when most other nations have found a solution?
No, I don't think that's an acceptable solution. I think what we need to do is we've trained now 3 generations of Americans to be dependent on the government to fill that gap. So there are a couple of ways that you can tackle these issues. The chief problem, and I think we all acknowledge this, is that people don't buy. Let's say that everyone were age 0 for a second. Okay, everyone was born today. How do you solve the healthcare problem? You don't really have to solve the healthcare problem because people, presumably, you train them to buy insurance when they're young. The big problem is people don't buy insurance when they're young. Now they're 60, they don't have insurance, they have pre-existing conditions, and now no one's going to cover them, right? So we all know that the problem in the future is not going to be people who are 65 because in 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, they'll be dead, right? The big problem is going to be people who are 20 who are not getting health insurance now, and then in 40 years, they have a pre-existing condition, they look for health insurance. So if we're talking about the future and the future plans for healthcare, what we need to be doing is encouraging young people to buy health insurance. Well, there are only 2 ways to do that. One is to use the government to force people to buy health insurance, and the other way is to basically have a market system that punishes people for not buying health insurance. Okay, the way you have a market system that punishes people for not buying health insurance is you make it very clear to people that there's a moral hazard involved here, that if you don't buy health insurance, that you're going to be paying more in the long run, so you'd better, pay health insurance right now and make smart decisions about it. Now, for the people who fall through the cracks, as I say, there's 2 groups now that we're talking about. There's people who are old and have pre-existing conditions, and it's too late for them. What do? They can't go back to being 20 and buy health insurance when they were healthy, right? So for those people, obviously, we have to have some sort of backup that phases out over time, right? That doesn't work the same way for a 60-year-old as it works for a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old who can buy when they're healthy, because we want to encourage those people to buy, not to be relying on government. And there I'm not against the idea of a phased-out government program based on age that helps subsidize people in pre-existing condition situations. And the other thing is that you have to have private charity pick up the slack for a lot of this stuff. And this is where I've said that I think that private charity does pick up the slack for a lot of things. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel made obviously a big to-do when he did a routine on his show in which he talked about how his baby son had been born. They took him to Children's Hospital. He had an open heart surgery. And that's why you need Obamacare. Okay, Jimmy Kimmel didn't have Obamacare. Jimmy Kimmel had private insurance. The fact is that private insurance, which covers the vast majority of the market, is still covering of pre-existing conditions because when you are employed and you have insurance, you're pooled with all the other employees of your company. That's the way it works, right? They don't charge you more with a pre-existing condition, at least in huge numbers, when you're getting it through your employer. So that's problem number 1 with Jimmy Kimmel is he already had health insurance. The problem number 2 that he didn't mention is that Children's Hospital is a charity hospital. A lot of people are coming in there with Medicaid, and the only way that people can get covered is not just through Medicaid, it's because there's a bunch of charity that's coming in and supplementing the Medicaid to pay the doctor. I know this because the doctor who operated on Jimmy Kimmel's son is a guy named Vaughn Starnes, and he operated on my daughter when she was a year and a half old. So we were at the same hospital with the same doctor. The vast majority of patients there, I believe, were on Medicaid. And they were able to get care because of the charity that was involved. So my solutions are twofold. There's a long answer, but it's a complex question. So the answer is, 1, private charity needs to be increased so that we can help pick up the slack, because if that doesn't happen, conservatives, note to us, we need to give more charity because if we don't do it, the government's going to try to. Okay, and solution number 2 is that we have to have a phased-out program that takes care of the people for whom it's too late to actually make good decisions, but still encourages people to make good decisions now about buying their insurance, which means there must be a risk attached to not buying insurance.
2 things. First of all, if you're encouraging people to buy health insurance, at the age of 20 or an age like that, they're not going to have, the income or the percentage to donate as much to a better insurance plan,
You don't need a terrific insurance plan when you're 20. You need a catastrophic insurance plan when you're 20. And the truth is that most of the time you need a catastrophic insurance plan generally. You shouldn't have to go to an insurance company if you have a flu. You should be able to go to a doctor and pay cash.
And also, when you're 20, there are still people with pre-existing conditions that would jack up those costs, and getting it early might not help.
100%. But again, this is a time lapse question because the fact is that my daughter was covered under my insurance, right? If you're under 20, you're covered on your parents' insurance typically. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Mr. Shapiro, thank you for being here today. I'm sure it takes guts to say those things, especially at a place like Northwestern, so thank you.
Oh, it's fine. I do it for a living.
So you mentioned a couple of times about how there needs to be a national dialogue focusing on various social issues. Do you think that your caustic left versus right, liberal versus conservative language helps you change people's views, or do you think that your success, your fame, this tour that you're doing comes from being a sounding board for people who already have established views very similar to yours?
So I think some of both. So I will agree that some of the things that I say are caustic. One of the reasons that I do this in caustic manner is because if you're entertaining people, then you're also getting them to listen to you. We live in an entertainment culture, and all of that is true. Second thing is the reason that I do that is because the most common left argument against people on the right is you're mean, you're nasty, you're cruel, you're bad. It's not an argument, it's a character attack. By me getting aggressive, that basically says to the left, okay, back off. We're not going to make character attacks on each other because we can do it all day. Now we can have a discussion. So you may have noticed that the last couple of people who came up are people who disagree with me, and we've had a very cordial discussion. I'm more than happy to have cordial discussions. But first we have to take off the table the idea that I'm an asshole because you disagree with me. So the way to do that is by me saying, listen, if you think that, then that kind of makes you an asshole. So that's the way that I do that, is to disarm the character argument so we can actually get down to brass tacks. Again, I think that the evidence is pretty good that I've convinced, this is not on me, it's because people listen, thank God, is that I've convinced a fair number of people. I mean, I do get dozens of letters a day from people on the left who've listened to my arguments, and it's caused them to at least think a little bit more deeply about the argument. There's room for a lot of various voices with a lot of various different approaches. I mean, you can approach it like Arthur Brooks, and that's wonderful. I love Arthur Brooks. But there needs to be somebody who says some of the tough things that people aren't willing to hear. And that's not just about me saying it in a caustic fashion. It's about me saying things that people don't want to hear. Like, people take it as caustic. When I say your life is in your hands, that seems to me not a particularly caustic thing to say, but people get offended by it because it's something they don't necessarily want to hear. When I say things like, if you're employed by an industry where there are jobs that are being lost to technology, Trump ain't going to bring it back, Hillary ain't going to bring it back, nobody's going to bring it back. When I say that, people get very upset because they want people to bring it back. But that's not me being caustic, it's the facts being caustic.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you think that, you said people like to characterize you as an asshole. Do you think that's just because...
Not just my wife, yeah.
So, do you think that's because that's just a very personal attack on your character, or is that based on your views?
Well, I think that it's because of my views that they attack my character. I think that, I like to think that I'm a relatively nice guy, but the fact is that it doesn't matter how nice you are. Mitt Romney was a genial fellow, and they called him a guy who straps dogs to the top of his cars, wants to put you all back in chains, and has binders full of women because he hates women. Right? I mean, there's not a more genial person in politics, more kind-hearted, kind of genteel person in politics than Mitt Romney, and they basically called him Hitler, and that's why they'd spent that bullet by the time Trump came around, who legitimately is not the world's greatest guy.
Good evening, Mr. Shapiro.
Howdy.
I just want to say thank you for everything you do. I don't have a question besides this. I want to know if you would sign your book.
Yeah, bring it up here right now. Let's do it.
And if I could just shake my hand.
I'm always happy to shake hands so long as...
Hi, Ben. This is a Twitter question from Cairo Cuz. It says, when was the last time you changed your mind on some public policy? And why did you make that change?
So I changed my mind based on further evidence. So the last time that I remember changing my mind was on decriminalization of marijuana. So I used to be in favor of criminalization of marijuana. My views have shifted very libertarian on the drug war. And that's because as I saw more evidence that the drug war is a giant fail, and that fit with my general worldview, which is the government sucks at everything except breaking things, then... Now, one note, don't mistake my lack of support for the drug war for my support for drugs. People who smoke pot irritate me to an enormous degree, and I think they're wasting time and brain cells. But with that said, that's a case where I think that as the evidence makes itself clear, it's pretty clear the government doesn't know what to do with the war on marijuana, and they've wasted a lot of time and money and have hurt a lot of people in that war.
So my question just sort of focuses on two sort of different things we've been talking about. One, which is focusing on the decisions people make and how that influences how successful they are. And two, you made a comment saying, in America, we don't afford you, equality of wealth or things like that. We give you equality of access.
Well, equal access to rights, not equal
Okay, so-
access.
Okay.
There is a difference. What I mean by
Yes.
equal access to rights, obviously, is I mean that no one's going to get in your way, that the rights that you hold are the same as the rights that I hold. But when I'm and if somebody blocks them, then that's blocking your access. But what I don't mean is that a person who has $1 million in the bank is equally situated with a person with $5 in the bank, because obviously that's stupid.
Yes, and I would agree that that's stupid.
Good, we're in agreement on stupidity. All right.
Yeah, something we can agree on. So, I do want to sort of extend that into, I do personally believe that the number one factor in a lot of these sort of things are the decisions you make. But a lot of what affects your decisions is sort of where you start out, and sometimes that's like a long sort of cultural argument and things like that.
True.
But other times, it's something more basic like, well, if you weren't born into as wealthy a family, it's harder to go to a nicer college, and you're pressured to take another job so you don't finish high school, or you have to take care of, it's a single parent household, which you didn't decide, your parents made poor decisions.
Yes.
But then you have to take care of your little siblings or things like that. So then it becomes harder for you to maintain your job, and you lose that. So I think there's a lot of sort of things that
100%
affect
this
those
is correct, yeah.
three sort of key tickets you've talked about that are heavily influenced by factors entirely out of a person's
Well, I
control.
mean, not having babies out of wedlock is definitely not influenced by factors beyond your control. I mean, unless you have uncontrollable genitalia. So the fact is that just because you had a single mom doesn't mean that you have to follow in the pattern. Bottom line is that when you have cycles of poverty, somebody's going to have to break that at some point, and that's going to take an act of will. When it comes to graduating from high school, the number of people who are dropping out of high school because they need to, support their family is incredibly low in the United States. But if that's the case, then I'll give you an example. There's a listener of mine who's a young woman, I think she's probably 18 years old, who emailed me the other day, and she said, "You have your 3 rules, right? No, don't have babies before marriage, and finish high school, and then get a job." And she said, "I love your show. I agree with everything you say. I also broke one of those rules. So I have a baby. I had a baby when I was 15 years old. And what should I do about that?" And I replied to her, and I said, "Well, what's your social structure like? What did you have your parents nearby who can help out with your kid? Do you have a church that you belong to, people who you can rely on?" And she said, "Well, I'm not really a member of a church. I don't have like a huge social structure. I have my mom. My mom's also a single mom, because there are these pathologies where there are generations of single mothers. And so what should I do?" And she said, "Well, I went ahead and I got my GED, and now I'm trying to go to community college, but I don't have money for childcare. I don't have money for childcare. My mom works. So what should I do?" And I said, "Well, why don't you put together a GoFundMe and get it to me, and I'll push it out there." And so she sent me a GoFundMe. I put $100 in the kitty, and an hour and a half later, she had $6,000. The reason that I did that, and the reason that I tell this story, is not because I'm such a wonderful dude, although I am. The reason that the reason that I tell this story is because there is a world of willing people who are willing to give and help you escape these things if you want to make the effort. There's whole groups of people out there. There's whole organizations dedicated to helping you escape making bad decisions, dedicated to helping you get out of poverty. And if people need to find these things, then please email me, email your church, email your synagogue. There are entire religions dedicated to this. And this idea that there are these inescapable chains of poverty, that no decision you make can help you escape these things, if that's true, then we're not doing a good enough job on a private level. But I don't think it's true. I think the American people are the most generous people on the face of the earth, statistically speaking. That is eminently true. Republicans, by the way, do give much more money to charity than Democrats, mainly because they're religious. And so our goal as individuals, not as a society, because I don't like to talk about our goals as a quote-unquote society. Our goals as individuals should be to help people make the right decisions so they can escape these bad decisions that they were about to make. And people's goals as individuals should also be not to make the bad decisions. These cycles cannot be broken by a government coming in and trying to fix them. Government tried to fix poverty in 1964. And the war on poverty has now been going for half a century, and by percentage, the same number of people are poor. Okay, so this is just not working. We're going to need to do something else, and it's going to need to come down to individual decision making.